Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It's time to get a little deeper. Me and Tigo are here. We're the Draft Dodgers, and we got a full 2 round mock draft for you coming on after this. And we're back. Again, Dom C of Project Prospect. If you haven't done so yet, folks, Project Prospect's a new YouTube channel out there. I'd really appreciate a subscribe. Hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're ready for draft content all the time, here's your number one spot for it. So we're going to talk a little bit more in-depth mock draft today. It's time, man, and I couldn't be more excited. So before we get into our 2 round mock, let me go ahead and bring on my esteemed co-host from Talking Jets with Tigo. It's Tigo.
Hello, friends. How's
What's up,
everyone doing
buddy?
tonight?
I'm well. How are
Great,
you, man?
I'm
Yeah.
great. Jets win. It's a fun day of football. You know, got to spend. I took a break, and my parents have like a little homestead. You know, like 3.5 acres of property. Went out there, shot the bow, just got away from civilization. It was a good time.
Very nice, man. Very nice. Sometimes you need to kind of recharge a battery. So I hear you, man. I've been out and about after the Jets game. I was out and about with the family all day long. So I'm glad to kind of settle in here now, nice and comfortable, and get into this 2 round mock draft, man. How stoked are you?
I'm excited because like now we get to talk about some of our favorite players that aren't just, you know, your top 40 prospects and things like that. And we can start looking at some of these matchups of like, okay, if you pass on, like, for example, the last mock that we did, I didn't have the Giants take an offensive lineman or a wide receiver and instead go defensive tackle. Well, why would I do that? Now in the second round, we can talk about it. It'll be a great time.
Yes, amen. And so, just to let you guys all know, like I said, we are the Draft Dodgers. We got a podcast that comes out once a week for you. Again, if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe. It really helps the YouTube algorithm a whole heck of a lot. We're going to get into a 2 round mock. So, we did set some parameters just to let you guys know right off the bats. Instead of going odds and evens, we've just changed it up a little bit. So, Tigo's going to be choosing for all of the AFC teams, and I'm going to be choosing for all of the NFC teams. So you might hear me take a couple picks in a row. You might hear Tigo take a couple picks in a row, but that's the basis behind it. We were also allotted for some trades. We're going to trade in the first round and the first round only. Once we get into the second round, whatever draft picks were accumulated from a first round trade will stand, but we're not going to trade any more draft picks come the second round. So we don't want this video to be 4 hours long. So that's the goal here. So, and Tigo, correct me if I'm wrong, you were able to manipulate the simulator to kind of give us the updated standings per Tankathon, if I'm not mistaken.
So there it is. That's the draft order, right? We did, and we took one liberty and two liberties and 2 liberties alone at the time of recording. When we recorded the podcast, we just kind of just assumed that the Eagles would win their game, right? I think the Eagles are the second best team in all of football behind only the San Francisco 49ers. And if I'm going to put my money on a team to win, I'm going to put my money on the Eagles, and that's it. The only luxury, that and Miami over Tennessee, but that doesn't change anything because it just doesn't really change anything. The only thing that would really affect it is Philadelphia beating Dallas or Dallas beating Philadelphia, because it would dictate who picks 32 and who picks 28, and that's it.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't account for the other Monday night game tomorrow, right? Green Bay and the Giants, but we'll just keep those as is. Yeah. We'll just keep those as is, folks. Like I said, at the time of recording, only the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games on Sunday have played. So bear with us. We know this might not be exact science when it comes to the draft order, but it's the best we got. We made the update. We made some of the updates. So why don't we get into it, man?
I'm going to switch it. I know that we just talked about it, but if the game's at halftime, Dallas it's 24-6. If Philly comes back and wins this, good on them. But I'm going to put Dallas at 32, Philly at 28. That's it. Let's just hop right into this, just like you said.
Let's go, man. Let's go. And I am the NFC teams
Yep.
representing the National Football Conference. So that would leave me on the board here with number 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is kind of a chalk pick. I think everyone's in agreement that Chicago's going to reset their team and reset their watch, if you will, the salary cap by taking a rookie quarterback. But what would happen if they didn't? Justin Fields didn't look bad today. He beat a good Detroit team. So just for sake of argument, I'm going to get a little spicy. I'm going to switch it up. And I'm going to pass on the quarterback. And Chicago's going to go ahead, and Chicago's going to take Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. Gives their quarterback of the future in Justin Fields another weapon, and a real good one alone at that. So, I mean, there's not much I have to say about Marvin Harrison.
Nope.
Blitnikoff winner, best wide receiver in college football. Size, strength, speed, hands. The whole total package. He's the closest thing I remember to a mix between AJ Green and Julio Jones.
Yeah, it's a good pick. The Bears have one of 3 options at number 1. Take the quarterback, take Marvin Harrison Jr., or trade out. And so it's a good pick. I have New England here on the board at number 2, and they're jumping with joy because they get to take the quarterback that they want right now. Now, the question comes, do I stick to my board? Do I stick to the consensus board? Do I take Drake May? Do I take Caleb Williams here? I think if you're New England, you're probably just going to take what everybody thinks is the number 1 prospect in the game. And I'm just going to take it, make it simple. They desperately need the quarterback. I'm going to take Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. Just make life easy.
Interesting. I love it. And that leaves me on the board for Arizona, right?
Yes, sir.
And Drake May is still on the board. But I don't think they're going to pick. I don't think Drake May is going to pick here. I think the Giants are going to come calling, right? If the board falls like this, and like I said, I think Chicago more than likely will take a quarterback. And if they don't take a quarterback, they're more than likely will trade down because they'll get their haul of picks. But we got to, there's going to be a lot of mock drafts between now and April on this channel and every channel alone. So let's look at different, scenarios and different possibilities, and let's see how a draft works out if Harrison comes off the board. And right here at number 3, Drake May is still sitting there, and I think the Giants are going to come up. Right, the Giants have an extra second round draft pick in that they acquired from Seattle, so. That would be 5 to 20 or 5 to 3. It's about 500 points. So let's just say the Giants give up number 30, whatever is that, 37 as well. And that should make it work. Draft chart, it's 20 points, give or take. We're going to go with that. And they're going to sit here and they are now going to draft their future franchise quarterback. Have Daniel Jones under contract for 1 more year, but I think Giants fans all over would be super happy with bringing in Drake May, quarterback for UNC, a guy who's maybe not as mobile as Daniel Jones, not as fleet as foot, but definitely mobile enough. Strong arm, pocket presence that Daniel Jones kind of seems like he lacks at times. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Drake May to come in. Maybe he earns a starting job right from the get-go. Probably not. I think this is a situation kind of like when Eli was drafted, where halfway through the season, Kurt Warner handed the reins over to Eli Manning, and from there it was over. I think that's a situation that could happen here if Daniel Jones and Drake May are both on the board. So Drake May is going to be the pick for the Giants, and I'm up again with the Washington. No?
I'm up. Oh, yes. You are up. Washington's in the NFC. I'm an idiot.
Washington's in the NFC, and to me, this is still a no-brainer. I'm going to go ahead and take and secure a left tackle for him. Olufosanu's the pick. There's an argument to be made that Joe Alt might have the higher floor and than Olufoshanu, but Olufoshanu and those traits, it's hard to pass up. He can be a pure left tackle, in the mold of Walter Jones or Tyron Smith or one of these guys who just comes in and you plug him and play him there for 12, 15 years. So Olufoshanu is going to be the pick.
And you're right back with Arizona.
I leave it. I run it right back with Arizona, man. This is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Arizona's got listen. Arizona could do a bunch of different things here, right? Arizona could do a bunch of different things. They got holes all over the place, and we know that a consensus says that if the two quarterbacks go 1 and 2, they'd probably take Marvin Harrison number 3. They need another weapon on that offense for Kyler Murray. So I'm going to go ahead and still stay there and give him one. And it's not Marvin Harrison, but the drop off isn't too far. I'm going to give him Malik Neighbors from LSU. Like I said, a guy who put the ball in his hands fast. Not as smooth of a runner as Marvin Harrison. I don't know if there's many in this class that are that as smooth, but man, the ball in his hand. Yards after the catch, all that stuff Malik Neighbors does. He just steps up time after time and makes big play after big play. And 6 foot, 205 pounds. Not six. He's not 6'4", 215 like Marvin Harrison, but he's still sturdy enough. And that's my pick. So, who's up next? You are.
Finally, I get to make a pick. Tennessee Titans are on the board at 6. And this is an interesting spot if you're the Titans, because obviously you're staring down the barrel of Joe Alt, and I think you desperately need to fix that offensive line. And you just took an offensive lineman in the first round, high and early last year in Peter Skoronski. Do you do that again this year, especially with like the need at wide receiver? Is the value of wide receiver here at 6 all that great? I don't know. I don't think you can just. You have to. If you're staring down the barrel of Joe Alt and you're Tennessee, I think you have to fix that offensive line. I think Will Levis has shown enough that he can get it done. I think you have to give Treylon Burks at least one more opportunity. This is a great wide receiver class. So I'm going to take Joe Alt here and send him to Arizona. Because, like, worst case scenario, Joe Alt plays right tackle. Like, that's the worst case scenario. And you can put Peter Skoronski at left tackle. Best case scenario, you put Joe Alt at left tackle and Peter Skoronski at left guard. And now you've really kind of solidified that offensive line. You got to do something there. So Tennessee is going to go with Joe Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame. And then you're back on the clock with Chicago at 7.
Yeah, and listen, Joe Alt's a great pick. I don't think if he's on the board, I don't think Tennessee hesitates too much. That's my opinion. The only guy I would think about is Brock Bowers, but that's for another day, another show. And Chicago's on the board. They took Marvin Harrison. You know that they're running it back with Justin Fields, at least for now, at least for another 2 years, so they say. So I'm going to step to the defensive side of the board. Plenty of holes all over the place on that defensive side of the board. They drafted a few interior guys this past year. They made the big trade for Montez Sweat at the trade deadline, and they locked him up long term. I'm going to go ahead and still stay in that front 7. And I'm going to bring in somebody to play opposite of Montez Sweat. Arguably the best pure edge rusher in this class. The more I watch this film, the more I like him. I think that there's some serious red flags that will be, that some teams are going to knock him off his board, but the talent is pure, and it's hard to pass on Leatu Latu, the edge from UCLA at this pick. Chicago locks him in and brings in Marvin Harrison, Leatu Latu, arguably the two best at their spots. The Raiders are up at 8.
It's a great fit. I love that pick. Leatu Latu is my favorite edge rusher in this class, not named Jared Verse, and that's not in like the rankings or anything. I just love Jared Verse because he's a Florida State kid, and I like my Florida boys and all that. But I think you're right. The red flags, you gotta at least have that conversation. Now, I have Las Vegas on the board here at 8, and I think what we've seen from Las Vegas at this point in time is that I think they're in desperate need of a quarterback. I think Myers has played exceptionally well. You can't get out of the Devontae Adams trade. You just took Michael Mayer in last year's draft. And so if you're Vegas and you're here, I would take a quarterback. Now, personally, I still have Bo Nix as QB3. And so I'm going to take Bo Nix here at 8 and send him to Las Vegas. I think it's a matchup made in heaven. And Bo Nix with his legs gives you an ability, because you're probably going to lose Josh Jacobs. If that's the case, you can at least try to replicate some of that athleticism with his legs in Bo Nix. So, Bo Nix, you're going to Las Vegas. And then I'm back on the clock at 9 with the New York Jets. And I think we're going to do our first trade of the mock draft. It's 2 teams that I own.
Second trade. The Giants already traded.
You're right. The Giants came up. So the second trade, and the way that I look at it is, look, it's the first team, PFF and me. We're on the same page here. If you're the Jets at 9, I think the entire NFL is going to think that you want to go tackle. And I love Talise Fuaga, but if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you cannot let another year go by where another tackle goes and you're not getting anything. So I'm going to do a trade between the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to give up their second-round pick. I think that's going to be a big point that the New York Jets are going to want to recover, because we don't have it because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. Then we're going to get next year's second and then pick 118 to do that. Cincinnati is going to come up, and I already said who they're going to take. They're going to come up and they're going to take a pure right tackle. That's what they need. They're probably going to lose Jonah Williams into Talise Fuaga, the tackle out of Oregon State, and they just paid the New York Jets to not take that player so that they can get it. You have everything if you're Cincinnati to win a Super Bowl. Protect Joe Burrow, plain and simple. And now the Chargers are on the board again. One of my picks. Woo! Now we get to go on a Tigo run here. And the Chargers are an interesting spot because obviously they took Johnston in the first round last year. And I still think that wide receiver is a need. They're going to lose. I think they're going to lose Williams and Allen this offseason.
I believe they're both under contract for one more year.
Okay.
Allen they could get rid of for salary cap purposes, but I know Mike Williams I think he's got 2 more years, big time money too.
They're hurt. The offensive line. You know what? I'm going to stick to my guns here. We ranted and raved last week about how good Jer'Jon Newton is, the interior defensive lineman out of Illinois, and they need to be able to stop the run. This is a matchup made in heaven. I'm going to just stick to my guns here. Jer'Jon Newton, the interior defensive lineman out of Illinois. I know we were just talking wide receiver. Not going to make that move. They take Jer'Jon Newton, and then you're back up on the clock, and we go on a massive, massive Dom run here. You've got the next 5 picks starting with the Atlanta Falcons.
Wow, I didn't realize that. And the board kind of fell in a place that I wasn't expecting. I think Atlanta has a lot of areas that they can improve, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I really like adding another cornerback there opposite of AJ Terrell. They're always in need for some reason. They always seem to be able to use another pass rusher. So you can go edge rusher. The interior of the line could use some help. I just don't think now that Jer'Jon Newton's off the board, I don't think there's anybody worth their weight in lead to be taken this high. So I'm going to probably pass on there. And listen, the board fell as it did. To me, you have the opportunity to go get a Heisman winner. You go get Jaden Daniels from LSU. And, you let him run it out and you let him challenge Desmond Ridder next year in the offseason and let the best man take it, right? Jaden Daniels in that offense with the kid Robinson and all those weapons outside, man, that could be dangerous. So
yeah. Drake London, Pitts, all that stuff. And you're back with the Saints.
And I'm up with the Saints. Again, an area where I think you can go a bunch of different ways. I really think interior defensive line edge makes sense, but they're going to be losing Michael Thomas. So I'm going to go ahead and replace Michael Thomas with the best Michael Thomas replacement I can think in Keon Coleman from the wide receiver from Florida State. Big body, pure X, go get the ball. Everything that Michael Thomas did in his prime, Keon Coleman can do. And is athletic for his size too, which is outstanding. So Keon Coleman off the board at 12, and that leaves me with who?
The
Seattle.
Seattle Seahawks.
Okay. Um, Seattle, I like the interior offensive line for Seattle as well. I think if Bo Nix is on the board, I think that's a real conversation that you have to have because Geno wasn't the Geno of last year, and really that contract, the majority of that money is paid out already. So they're going to need a quarterback of the future. I'm not going to take one now, especially with four of them off the board already. I don't see the value in quarterback for them right here. I'm personally not a guy that's going to take Michael Penix this high. I think the injuries are real. The injury flags are going to be a real thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip towards the opposite side of the board, right? They traded for Leonard Williams, right? He is, kind of playing that 5 tech, defensive tackle, defensive end, strong defensive end. Kind of big bully kind of guy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a guy who I absolutely adore in this class. Some might think it's a little high, but I think it's a perfect Leo Williams replacement if they don't bring him back. He's a guy that can pop inside if you need him to. He can rush from the outside. He's definitely going to steal the edge, and he's going to stay at home. I'm going to take Braylon Trice.
Real quick, I don't think this is a reach. I think this is right where Braylon Trice should go. Anywhere from 14 to 18. So
yeah, he's just showed out so much this year, and he was a bull in the china shop coming into this season, and I think he refined his game a little bit more. Power is still his forte, but if you're not going to bring Leo Williams back, and I'm not saying they're not, I mean, why not bring in a younger, better, more physical player? Leo Williams light, if you will. And that brings me back on the clock.
Yep, with the Rams.
Back on the clock with the Rams. No brainer for me. This is not going to take too long. I think I'm going to go ahead and secure. Man, I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and kind of rebuild or restock the Hog Mollies up front. I'm going to give them J.C. Latham, the tackle from Alabama. He can play left or right, I think. I know he's played majority right tackle in college, but I think he's got the footwork and definitely the strongest offensive lineman in this class. I think he can, step in and play left tackle if need be. So J.C. Latham to the Rams. That's my pick.
Yep. And then your last run for you, 15 with the Arizona Cardinals.
15 with the Arizona Cardinals. We already took who? Malik Neighbors to start. We're gonna flip on the opposite side of the ball. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my cornerback one. A guy I think is, not scheme specific. I think he can play press man very good. I think he can sink and break on a ball. His instincts are as good as anyone in this draft class. And that's Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins.
Yep.
Going to be perfect in that defense.
Yeah, I think it's a great pickup for them. Now, I'm on the board with Denver, and Denver's been playing really, really well this year, and they've been getting a lot of production out of a lot of the guys that they had. And if you're Denver and you're at this point, like, I thought for sure he wouldn't be here. So I didn't even have him on my board for Denver at this point. But how is Brock Bowers still on the board at this point? If you're Sean Payton, I don't think you can pass up on the weapon that is Brock Bowers. Yeah. So I'm going to send Brock Bowers to Denver and I think you can figure something out at wide receiver. They're going to lose Jerry Jeudy this offseason, and Cortland Sutton is still a dog. And so you can figure something out. And I was originally thinking along those lines of, do you put someone there? Do you have that conversation with a player in that ilk for Denver, but Brock Bowers is on the board. I'm not going to let him slip any further than Denver. Denver's going to take him here. And now I have Buffalo on the board, and I think I have a very similar kind of thought process here. I think the offense in Buffalo is kind of working, and I think you probably need to address the interior of the offensive line, maybe tackle. I think the Brown experiment should be dead and gone. I just think with J.C. Latham off the board, Amarius Mims, from what I understand, is going back to school.
Yeah,
This is too early.
I should have said that also. I'm gonna operate like he's going back to school. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
draft
all
him.
of the rumors that I hear is that he's going back.
Yeah.
So, like, I like Amarius Mims, but I don't think he's coming back here. And I think the real problem in Buffalo this year is really just the aging defense. And, you know, they have holes and they have things that they need to replace. And so I think I'm going to go get someone to kind of go in and play on that defensive line. We don't know what's going to happen with Von Miller and his contract, and we don't know what's going to happen. And I'd love to get an interior defensive lineman. And while I do have Leonard Taylor with a first-round grade, and I know you and I disagree on that, I don't have him with a middle of the first-round grade. But I do really, really like Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama. And I love the kind of like what he can bring and what he can do for what Dallas can do for Buffalo. So I'm just going to bring in more weapons and build that rotation there. I think you got to start fixing that defensive side of the ball in Buffalo. They won so often because of that defense. So let's go. And, you know, defensive-minded head coach, defensive-minded payer. The Jets are back on the clock at 18, and a guy that I would have felt comfortable taking at 9, this would have been the pick that I would have made at 9, is the pick that I now get to make at 18, which is great, which is wide receiver Romo Dunes out of Washington. I think what we saw from last week from the New York Jets is that, you know, when the offensive line can hold up for a little bit and when we see all this stuff, the problem is wide receivers can't get open. Outside of Garrett Wilson, I think Romo Dunes adds a massive 6'4", 220-pound body that you can get, true X, and now you've got some weapons on that for Aaron Rodgers, which is great. And you're at 19 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are they doing?
Oof. Tampa Bay can go a bunch of different ways, but I think that at this point, oh man. Yeah, I think at this point, like you got to kind of, you know, Tampa Bay's got to realize or succumb to the fact that Joe Tryon ain't it, right? I know that they expended a first-round pick on him a while back. He's just not working out. They found some pieces up front. The offensive line looks good. They need some help in the defensive backfield. I think they got some contracts coming up. But I'm going to shy away from that. And I'm going to replace Joe Tryon. And I'm going to stay with the hometown kid. I'm going to give him a dog on the edge and give him Jared Verse, right? Imagine Jared Verse lined up next to Kalijah Cansey. You know, it gives you people from, you know, both sides, outside, or that 5 tech where Canty keeps playing and keeps pressing the pocket up there. I just love that. I love the combo. I love the idea of having a really good pass rusher opposite or next to Kalijah Cansey in Tampa Bay. So that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, it's a great pick. And then you are back on the clock with Green Bay at 20.
Green Bay at 20. I think everyone thinks they're going to go offensive tackle. It makes sense. I don't know if the value here, especially with Mims, we're assuming that Mims is going back to college. We're not going to draft him. So I'm going to veer, and I'm going to take a guy that could help them immediately. Doesn't matter if he lines up, you know, playing outside. I mean, they did trade Rasul Douglas, so, you know, cornerback depth is something, you know, something to be addressed out, you know, next to Jair Alexander. Doesn't matter if you play him in the slot. Doesn't matter if you play him at safety, where I think his natural position is going to be. I'm going to give them Cooper DeJean, the Swiss Army knife defensive back from Iowa. Like I said, he can come in and he can play, you know, one of the split safeties. He can play, you know, he can line up in the slot and man up, and you can even throw him outside. It doesn't matter. They have holes all in that defensive backfield. To me, Cooper DeJean's a perfect fit there.
As Indianapolis is picking next, I'm very, very, very upset because I thought that was going to be the easiest pick of my life is take Cooper DeJean because he's going to play somewhere in that secondary. He's going to play outside. He's going to play nickel. He's going to play. They need all of them. I don't think that this is any type of just like a consolation prize. I'm going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback out of Alabama here. Great, great pick. It's just the positional versatility of Cooper DeJean is so enticing, such a great athlete. But Kool-Aid McKinstry comes in and I think he's 1B in this cornerback class. And to get that kind of value at 21, I think him and Nate Wiggins is going to be a conversation that we're going to see all off season in terms of who's the best corner in this class. And to be able to get arguably the best corner in the class at 21, that's great value. And then you're back on the board at 22 with the Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings, gosh. Watching that game today where they scored 3 points against the Oakland Raiders says something. Listen, Kirk Cousins' contract is up. There's something in me that thinks that Kirk Cousins comes back. Maybe on a 1-year deal, a little bit cheaper. Come back from Achilles, you never know. I'm going to go ahead and play chalky on this. Again, this is not a pick that I would make if I was in this spot, but I think it's a pick that really, really makes sense. If you need a quarterback to come in and take reps right from the get-go, you got to get one that's seasoned, and there's probably, outside of Bo Nix, I don't think there's any quarterback in this draft class that has more starts under his belt than Michael Penix, the quarterback from Washington. Like I said, I think the injuries that he sustained throughout his college career, one on each shoulder, the same ACL on the same knee twice, I think that's going to be real. But at this spot, with Cousins kind of a question mark, I think you got to get somebody in there that you can't be afraid to play right from the get-go. So Michael Penix is the pick.
Yeah, it's a great, great pick. They need the quarterback. If they have the quarterback, I think they beat Vegas handedly. I have Pittsburgh here at 23, and then we're going to get a little run of Tigo, which is super fun. I think Pittsburgh, I have questions about the quarterback, but with Penix gone and it's only year 2 for Kenny Pickett, I don't know if they're really going to do anything there. Again, the value of tackle's not great here. I think you need to figure out something with Moore Jr. I think I'm just going to do the safe pick here. I love the matchup or the pairing of Cameron Kinchens as the safety to go into, Pittsburgh and kind of become the heir apparent to Minka. Minka has had a hard time staying healthy recently in the last couple of years. He's constantly missing time. You have 2 safeties on there, and I think Cam Kinchens, one, is a first-round talent, and when you're talking about like just a true safety who can play, I think Cam can come in and fill a big need for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that secondary that needs help because the only players that are worth anything are Joey Porter and Minka Fitzpatrick. Now I then have Houston on the board, and I think Houston needs to go out and address the wide receiver room. We just saw, Nico Collins is a big-bodied X. I love what you're seeing out of Nico. Tank Dell in the slot is incredible. And he's got a ton of versatility. And I think their offensive line, when healthy, is one of the better units in the NFL. In the first round, I think you got to get the value of the wide receiver. Go and get a former teammate of CJ Stroud and Emeka Egbuka and bring him in there and line him up. And now you've got a really, really lethal trio of Tank Dell, Emeka, of Nico Collins in Houston. And you can continue to have that high-flying offense and not have it fall apart with one injury or two like it did against the New York Jets. Kansas City is on the board here for me. And after watching what Kansas City did last week, you need a wide receiver. You just need a wide receiver. You need a wide receiver. You just need one. And when you're staring down the barrel of and again, I don't like comps, but when you're staring down the barrel of a DK Metcalf clone and Xavier Leggett, I don't know how you say no. You need a big-bodied X, and that's exactly what Xavier Leggett is. And that's what I'm going to do. Xavier Leggett to the Kansas City Chiefs at 25. And then the last pick of mine, for a while at least, is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and man, Jacksonville's an interesting team, especially at this position, because you have multiple first round picks on that defensive line in Allen, and we have no idea if they're going to bring him back. And you took Walker, and he's not really panning out yet, but we knew that he was going to be really, really raw. Your defensive backs need a ton of help as well. Like, you could use a safety, you could use a corner. The reality is that Calvin Ridley's a free agent. You could probably use a wide receiver, even though Parker Washington's kind of playing really well. But do you bank on that? Probably not. But is there value of wide receiver here at this point? I don't think so. I think I'm going to stick to the DB room. I think I'm going to take Kalen King out of Penn State here and send him there. I think you need help in the defensive back room in Jacksonville. I think Kalen King, the next best cornerback on my board, at least. I'm going to send him. I'm going to send him to Jacksonville.
Yeah, we differ on Kalen King. I don't see him. I don't have. I see him slipping out of the first round. That's just my opinion.
I could have taken Josh Newton here. That would have been a good pick too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different cornerbacks, and I'm going to take one off the board here as well for Detroit, who I think is, arguably the best pure man coverage cornerback in this class. A name that not a lot of people are familiar with. And you're going to have to scroll down the board here. Scroll down the defensive board here. The cornerback board. Right there at, what is that, 46? There he is. From Toledo, Quinion Mitchell. Absolutely. Listen, some might think it's a stretch here in the first round. I don't at all. I think that he has... If you just watch him on film, the man coverage skills in an Aaron Glenn, defense where they're going to press and they're going to play a lot of man coverage and so on and so forth. I think he's a perfect fit for the scheme. I think he's a guy that's just going to keep rising before we get up to April. And he's a guy this is the area where he's going to go off the board, and it's a perfect fit for Detroit. And that leaves me up on the board again.
Yep. With Philly.
Philly's an interesting one. Because I think Philly can go a bunch of different ways, right? Their defensive backs, I know they drafted a few. They took a couple late round flyers in the past couple drafts. Josh Jobe comes to mind. We don't know what is left in the tank with Bradbury, who's really having a down year. They always seem to kind of veer towards the trenches, though, and I think that Philly and Howie Roseman are synonymous for taking players at positions a year before you think you need them, right?
Yep.
So what I'm going to do here is, knowing that they have a little bit of an aging defensive front and an aging offensive front, I think they're going to go ahead and plug. I'm going to go ahead and plug JT Tuimoloau, the edge from Ohio State. He's a perfect fit. He's your 270-pound guy behind Sweat. Your next coming. To me, I think it's a match made in heaven. Maybe a little bit rich at this point, but he's going to come off the board between now and pick 40. So, and like I said, Howard Roseman's synonymous for drafting guys a year before you think you need them. So to me, this makes sense.
It's great roster building by Philadelphia. I love that philosophy. Miami is unfortunately not going to make a pick here in this world. I'm going to have them call Andrew Luck to see a good spot to eat in Indianapolis, and they're going to lose their pick. I'm kidding. Obviously, Miami, I think, really needs to help beef up the offensive line. I think that they're in a win now mode, and they should be. They have one of the more complete rosters in the NFL. You really need to hope that Xavier Howard starts playing up to his contract, because you can't get out of that contract anytime soon. But I think defensively, they're really, really stout. Obviously, they have probably the best wide receiver duo in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the NFL. Maybe. And there's not a tight end that's really worth anything here. They don't need the running back. They don't need the quarterback. So I'm just going to get what I consider offensive line weapon. And I'm going to take the Graham Barton. And I'm not even going to give him a position. Graham Barton, offensive lineman out of Duke, and you'll figure out where he's going to play. If you watch our offensive lineman podcast, I love Graham Barton. I think he can play all 5 positions on the offensive line without an ease. And if you're the Miami Dolphins, you probably need a tackle. I know you need 2 guards. Graham Barton is going to fill a role sooner rather than later, and that's just the pick. And then you're on the clock with San Francisco.
And Graham Barton there makes tons of sense. Look, Robert Hunt's his contract is up after this year. Liam Eichenberg is, it's a stretch to call him a starter in the NFL at both guards. And then you have Armstead, who is great when he's on the field, but he doesn't play more than 7-8 games a year at this point. So to me, I like that pick. Wherever you got to plug him in, you plug him in. To me, it
just works.
Yeah, that absolutely works. And I'm up for San Francisco here.
Yep.
And I'm going to, I'm tempted. I'm really tempted, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I'm the offensive side of the ball. And knowing that you have the best offensive left tackle in the game in Trent Williams, who's going to be 36 years old. You have a right tackle who is borderline cuttable at most. I'm going to go ahead and take my next favorite offensive lineman in this, or offensive tackle in this class, and that's Jordan Morgan of Arizona. He battled back last year, had an ACL, had a really solid year this year. I think he can play both the left and the right, even though he's been, he stayed at the left side in Arizona. I think he can plug in on the right side if you need him to for a couple years until Trent Williams is done, and then bounce him over to the left. To me, it's just a pick that makes sense. I was tempted to go defensive back. There's a lot of them on the board that I like at this point, but tackle is probably more of a need to keep that offense running.
Yep. And then I have Baltimore here on the board. I think Baltimore is a team, again, I think they draft incredibly well. And I think that it's going and getting things that they know that they need. I think they've got one of the best tight ends rooms in the NFL. I love Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers has been exactly what we thought he was going to be. And Rashad Bateman has not been what we thought he was going to be. Denzel Beckham is really only there for the 1 year.
Odell Beckham.
What was that?
Odell Beckham. You said Denzel.
Did I say? My bad.
That's
Odell
okay.
Beckham is only really there for the 1 year. And I think that if you can get a guy like A.D. Mitchell who can be your big X and provide a different, I feel like all of Baltimore's wide receivers are kind of like small, shifty guys. So I'm going to get you just a big bodied X for Lamar Jackson to target in the red zone, not named Mark Andrews. And I'm going to take A.D. Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas here for Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I hope that this doesn't end up this way, because Cowboys fans would be unbearable if they won a Super Bowl. But they're here picking at 32 with the last pick in the first round. What do you have the Dallas Cowboys doing?
Well, I probably would have taken A.D. Mitchell if it was on the board. I think wide receiver is a sneaky need. But Jerry has a thing for those hometown kids. He likes to keep them close to home. But I digress. I'm going to address the defensive side of the ball. I am tempted. I'm not going to lie. I am tempted to take Chop Robinson and run him, on the opposite or next to Micah Parsons. I mean, how sick would that pass rush be?
That's what I would do.
But I'm not going to. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take cornerback Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Probably going to slot in the next level in the slot, something that it's a need for Dallas, and probably will affect the game. I mean, borderline. He can be borderline. Pro Bowl caliber right from the get go. I think that's the type of player Terrion Arnold is.
I'm so disappointed in you. I wanted Chop Robinson and Micah Parsons on the same team. Ugh, that would be so much fun.
It would be sick.
But that is our first round, and now we get to do something we haven't done on this channel at all. We're going to go into the second round. The Carolina Panthers are going to make a pick.
It's about time, right? And God, they need everything. But I'm not going to hesitate. To me, I think there's one guy that's just a perfect fit. You need to give Bryce Young, if he's going to develop, you need some weapons. right? Give me the kid out of LSU. Give me Brian Thomas Jr. 6'4", 200 pounds. You know, definitely better than any receiver that they have on their roster right now. Yes, I said it. I'm confident in the kid. I love his skills. I think wide receiver is a huge deficit for this Carolina Panthers team. Their whole roster construct is pretty poor right now, but let's go ahead and let's see if we can develop Bryce Young and give him some talent. Brian Thomas, you're a Panther.
I said this early, Dom. You'll remember it. I think it was the first position group that you and I did together was the wide receivers. And what did I say? When I was given an opportunity to talk about a guy, who did I pick? I picked Brian Thomas Jr. I said, kid is going to skyrocket up boards, and here he is. I'm really sad he didn't make it into the first round, but I love this kid so much. I think he's going to be a stud at the next level. I have New England here, and again, where it's value. Where's the value in this draft class? It's at offensive tackle. It's at wide receiver. It's at the stuff that New England needs so they can afford to take the quarterback, but they're going to have to protect him. Again, remember, guys, we're not taking a Marius Mims for the pure fact that we both think that he's going to be going back to school. I'm actually going to be taking Patrick Paul, the offensive tackle out of Houston. They need both a left and a right tackle, and I think I like Patrick Paul out of Houston a lot. Is he plug and play, ready to start day one? No, but New England isn't really going to be competitive all that quickly. So you can put him in there and have him help develop on the blind side with Caleb Williams, who's an escape artist anyway. And you get the next 3 picks. You're going to go Arizona, Washington, Arizona, take a breather, and then you're going to go Washington again.
Wow, how about that? So, Arizona's on the board. God, who did I take for Arizona last time? I took Malik
Nate
Neighbors.
Wiggins and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, so we're gonna stay on the defense or stay on the offensive side of the board, and I'm gonna give them a little beef up front. Listen, if there's anything, I know they invested in Paris Johnson Jr. last year, high draft pick to play the tackle spot. But you know, right now they're a little bit light. They got Will Hernandez and Tristan Colon playing guard for them. So I'm going to go ahead and take Washington tackle Troy Fatano with an understanding that he's probably going to play guard. He can line up. He's one of those guys. Not as flexible as Graham Barton, but he's a guy that can snap the ball if you need to. I think he's going to be a real good interior offensive lineman at the next level. Probably a first round pick. We just didn't have him go here, and the Cardinals are smitten to be sitting here and take him right off the board.
And now you get Washington.
Now I got Washington, huh?
Yep. And they took Olu Fashanu.
We took Olu Fashanu last time, I believe, right?
Yep.
So let's think about this. Let's think about this. Listen, double dipping on that offensive line isn't the worst thing in the world.
They did just trade
They
both
did
of their
just
edges.
trade both of their edges, huh?
And you're staring down the battle.
I'm not, yeah,
Chop.
but Chop's a different guy. I mean, it depends who the coach is in there next time, last time. But based on what they have right now, I think Chop is going to be a pass rush specialist at first. Maybe he's a guy that finds his role, something like Micah, who just floats around, 2-point stance coming off the edge. I don't know if that's a fit here for Washington. Necessarily. Let me think about this. Why don't you do this? Here's who I'm going to take. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just look up some contracts.
It's all good. If you're asking me, you want my opinion, I would do something on the defensive line.
Yeah.
While you're looking up to fill at the time. That's what I would do. I think they desperately need help on that defensive line. And
I don't know if the value's here, though. I don't know if the value's here. I don't know if Chop Robinson is the type of defensive lineman that they like. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to take Chop Robinson. I am going to stay on the defensive side of the ball right here, right now, and I'm going to take a cornerback that I happen to like a whole heck of a lot. I think he's going to be much more of a scheme fit than the kid they took last year out of Mississippi State. Probably hop in and become your cornerback too right from the get go. And I'm going to take TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. I love the player. I love the fit. I think he's going to be one of those guys. He's a bigger body. I think he's going to be one of those guys who develops into a really, really good. He was a good college player. He's going to develop into a really, really good pro.
Cool. You're back with Arizona.
Arizona again.
Yep. And then you're going to take a breather so I can pick for Tennessee, and then you're going to go to Washington again. So start thinking about that.
Yeah, Arizona is not going to let Chop Robinson get off the board. They're gonna go ahead and get another edge rusher. I think the defensive mind over there, Jonathan Gannon, can figure out and scheme a way to get Chop Robinson up and running and have him affect the game in a positive fashion. They have just revamped their defense with Nate Wiggins, Chop Robinson, and whomever else I just took for them. I already forgot.
Troy Fatano.
So that's going to be my pick. Arizona. I mean, Washington's back on the board.
Nope. Tennessee. I go, and then you go.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So Tennessee is here at 38. In the first round, we had them go Joe Alt, and I think that kind of fixes their offensive line issue, specifically at left tackle. Now, one of the things that I noticed with their wide receiver room is that all of their wide receivers are kind of like big body kind of guys, and I want a little bit more of a shifty guy there. I don't know. Is the wide receiver, is that the value here? Is that what we're going to do here? Is value, is it the wide receiver? Because I was looking down and maybe looking at because I really like Malachi Corley. Like I really like Malachi Corley.
He's a little too much like Traylon Burks, though, if I'm being honest, and if I'm going to give you my 2 cents.
But then I look at it and I go, you need DB help, like desperately. They need a cornerback. And like Denzel Burke is here. Like, do I do that?
Yeah.
They need help. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Denzel Burke, the cornerback out of Ohio State. I think they need DB help. I think they've been rotating a bunch of guys in and out of that DB room, trying to figure out something that works. I think Denzel Burke can come in and win a job. I really, really do, especially on that Tennessee defense.
I love Denzel Burke. I think he's probably one of the more physical defensive backs in this class. I really like the kid. So I love the pick. And that leaves me up at Washington. And I am going to go to the edge room once and for all. I think there's, I think they probably already missed the boat, and some of these guys that they were hoping to get there didn't fall. And I think there's probably one or two other guys that I think are top 50. And I'm going to go ahead and soak one up right now. Super high end, NFL caliber, edge rusher, fluid mover, fast, good get off, explosive. And that's the edge from Alabama, Chris Braswell. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's a better fit for the scheme as they're constituted right now. Again, we don't know what coaching staff's going to be there, but I think Chris Braswell, he beats college tackles well enough. He's got double digit, sack potential year in and year out. You gotta put some bodies in there. So Braswell's the pick.
Absolutely. I love that pick. The Raiders are on the board, and I don't even really think that this is all that hard of a pick. I'm going to take Leonard Taylor out of Miami to come in and plug in the middle there. I know that you're not as high on Leonard Taylor as I am. I just really, really like Leonard Taylor. If you're trying to watch tape on Leonard Taylor, I recommend watching 2022. He was everywhere. Every time Miami stepped on the field, you could notice him and you could watch him play. And I think you got to start filling up the middle of that defensive line in Vegas. And I think Leonard Taylor does a great job of doing that. And you're on the board with the Jets pick for the Green Bay Packers.
The Jets pick for the Green Bay Packers, huh?
Yep. This is the Aaron Rodgers pick.
Yeah. So Who did we take last time? We took Cooper DeJean, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, we took Cooper DeJean. Um, all right, so I'm gonna, I know that we talked about zigging and zagging um for the team last time. We kind of zipped away because I didn't like the value of the tackle board where they were picking last time, and Cooper DeJean was too good of a pick and too versatile of a weapon to not add to that defense. But I am going to go to the offensive side, to the offensive line, and I'm going to go ahead and lock up Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Big body, strong, still a little raw, still got some room to play, but we're going to hope that the shuffling that they've done on this offensive line this year and Zach Tom can still hang. And you have Tyler Guyton there to develop in as the right tackle of the future, move Zach Tom over and call it a day right now.
Yeah. It makes a ton of sense. For them. They got to start addressing the offensive line there. I think the days of David Bakhtiari are kind of dead and done. And so that's that. For the Chargers, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball, which is something I didn't think that I would do. I thought you try to go and address the offense, but I think the value of getting Josh Newton, the cornerback out of TCU here, is really, really good. I think Asante Samuel has played really well, and they've been trying to find him a running mate for the longest time. And so I'm going to find him a running mate in Josh Newton, the cornerback out of TCU. I just think the pick kind of makes itself there. It's a BPA at position of need versus just position of need. And then you're on the board for a couple of picks with the Atlanta Falcons.
And we took Jaden Daniels last time, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Whew. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. To me, this is kind of a no-brainer at this point. You have Calais Campbell. You don't know if he's coming back, right? They signed him to a one-year deal. You're going to need to replace that big body, and I think it could probably get done with a couple of different ideas or a couple of different players in this class. But when I think about the defensive line and the role that Calais Campbell plays, somebody who's who can, play in an odd man front and play 5 and 6 eye and really affect the game and seal the edge on the run and still offer something. He still push the pocket and so on and so forth. To me, I'm going to take the kid from Oregon, Brendan Dorlus, and I think he's a perfect understudy to Calais Campbell. If Calais Campbell comes back next year, if not, you plug him in and there's your player. There's your odd man defensive end. Let it ride.
Yeah.
And I'm up for who?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I'm gonna go ahead and what do I want to do for Philadelphia? I took JT Tuimalau last time, right?
Yep.
You know what? I think I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. And they have an affinity with these Georgia kids, right? And they've worked out well. We talked about the defensive backfield needing some youth, needing some young blood. Give me Kamari Lassiter to come in. At worst, he pops in and plays, the nickel cornerback, until they decide what's going on with James Bradbury and or Darius Slay, both who are having down years. I think he's a perfect understudy. You know that Howie Roseman likes these Georgia kids. To me, it makes sense. There's not an offensive lineman, I think, on the board here that I think is worth going to getting. Plus, Philadelphia has another pick later on in the draft. So, give me Lassiter.
Yep. It's a good pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're back with the Giants.
Oh, the Giants, right? So we took Drake May. And we still need to add some offensive firepower to this Giants team. Why not go get? Yeah, why not take? Nah, he's not the big body I was looking for. Man, I'm really trying to figure out a way because I really like his game to fit in Troy Franklin. I don't know if this is the pick here for the Giants because they got a bunch of players like Troy Franklin, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to shift my thoughts and go to the opposite side of the ball. No, yeah. I am. Um, I'm going to give him another big bodied, nasty, pocket pushing edge rusher to work opposite of Kayvon Thibodeau in Landon Jackson from Arkansas. He's so good. Not a lot of people are talking enough highly about him. He's a guy that's going to be a great pro. Like I said, big body, long. I think he can do wonders in that defense. Plays the run as good as he gets at the quarterback. Opposite Kayvon Thibodeau, you're now having another weapon that you have to account for on that defensive front. And like I said, wide receivers are, I still think this class is deep. I still think there's plenty of guys. I think there'll be time to get that guy for the Giants later on. So that's my pick.
Yep. And then you are back on the clock with the Los Angeles Rams.
Los Angeles Rams. He's dropped too far. I think this guy's a first round talent. Just too bad he plays at a position that is a little bit undervalued.
Yeah.
Give me Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. He comes in. He doesn't matter if he plays. He's probably steps in right away, and he's your starting strong safety for the Rams.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was looking at him and I was like, man, it really, really sucks that that he plays at this position, because I think he is so good. And I think that I think he's a first round talent, but he's just not going to go because of the safety position. I'm on the board with the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans addressed the offensive side of the ball. They took a wide receiver in the first round. I think that was a good pick because I made it. We're back in the second round, and this is a guy that I think is going to skyrocket up boards. If you watch our interior defensive lineman video, I have these guys with second and third round, middle of the second to the top of the third round grades, and I'm not going to pass up on them. I think if you're, why am I blanking on their head coach's name?
Who?
Houston's.
DeMeco Ryans. If you're DeMeco Ryans and you come from the Robert Saleh school of defense, you want to build up that rotation on the defensive line. You've seen it and you've used it in San Francisco, and you've seen how the Jets have used it. You're going to start building that up on the defensive line. I'm going to take, even though I do have his teammate ranked higher above him, I think Byron Murphy, the interior defensive lineman out of Texas, fits better schematically on what the Houston Texans are doing. And so I'm going to take Byron Murphy here and start pumping assets on the defensive line, which, if you're a Houston Texan fan, I would not be surprised if you're just going to see all of the picks going into the defensive line to start building up that rotation sooner rather than later. And then you're on the clock with New Orleans. And we took Keon Coleman last time, right?
Yep.
Oh man, New Orleans has so many needs, but I'm not going to let the guy slip any further. I think this is a good spot. Let him come in, let him redshirt for a year or two, and learn. Welcome to the Bayou, JJ McCarthy.
Interesting.
Welcome to the Bayou. Listen, Carr has not been as advertised and has not earned that contract that he's got. I don't know what the outs are. I'm not expecting JJ McCarthy to come in and outseat him, but JJ McCarthy, I think, is going to be a really good player at the next level. Still needs a little bit of time. Still needs to learn and develop, and could really use a veteran quarterback to sit in red shirt behind. JJ McCarthy's pick.
Yeah. I forgot about JJ McCarthy, and when you brought him up, I was like, oh, this is a great pick for them. You were trying to fit this guy in earlier, and you couldn't figure it out, so I'm going to fit him in. Now, I think this is a position that I was looking at for the Buffalo Bills in the first round, and I didn't go that way. I went on the defensive line because I felt the value was better there. But I do think that they do need some help in the wide receiver room. They have Stephon Diggs. I think Gabe Davis isn't going to be there that much longer. And I'm going to take one of my favorite wide receivers, or is slowly becoming, Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon. At 6'3", 190 pounds, I think you kind of find your Gabe Davis-esque replacement in terms of that big body target. And I think Troy Franklin can provide you a little bit more versatility than what you're getting out of Gabe Davis, and you're going to find it in the second round. And I really like Troy Franklin, and he's the pick. Now, the Jets are back up at 50, and in the first round, I had them take Rome Odunze.
Odunze.
Odunze, sorry, yep. And they're back in, the second round. They have a second round pick, and I think there's a couple of places that the New York Jets can go here. And if he didn't get hurt, the pick would be so easy in terms of like the interior offensive line, because I think that's where you need to find some help. But I think you need to address the offensive line here. And I think if you're looking at Kingsley Suamatia, and you can bring him in, he's not going to start right away. We don't really have a spot for him to start right away. And you can kind of bring him in and you can kind of start developing him. And I think ultimately Max Mitchell's home is going to be on the interior of the offensive line. I think he might make a better guard than he will a tackle. And then you have Carter Warren and all of that stuff. But with how injury-ridden the offensive line is, I think you have to address that a little bit and just bring in more bodies to just live there on cheap contracts. So I'm going to take Kingsley Suamatia out of BYU.
I love the player, dude. He moves so well. I think he can play left or right. And you don't know what's happening with Mekhi Becton. That's the reality. It's a Jets fan. We all know that.
Yep.
And I'm on the board with Tampa. Refresh my memory. I took an edge rusher, Jared Verse, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Last time. There's no quarterback that I think is probably worthy of this pick here. They're all off the board. I'm operating.
Shadur's already been confirmed to go back, and Carson's been offered with the backup or his heir apparent going into the transfer portal. I think Carson Beck's going back too.
And Quinn Ewers as well. I don't think you're going to see any of those guys. So quarterback at this spot, I mean, they probably would have loved J.J. McCarthy to fall to them, but he didn't. And I took an edge rusher. Yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see if I can kind of beef up. I know they drafted Cody Mauch last year and they slotted him at right guard. And he's been hot or cold, but I think he's got a future in there. They have their tackles pretty locked up, but they could still use some beef on that inside. This might be a little bit early, but I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. Robert Hainsey is there, and he's a guy at worst. Maybe Jackson Powers plays left guard to start before transitioning back to center. I think he's probably, arguably, some might like Cedric Van Pren better, but I think Jackson Powers right now is probably the best pure center in this class, but he's big enough and he's strong enough from the waist down, good anchor, that if asked to, he could also kind of supplement and play in that guard. So Jackson Powers Johnson's the pick for Tampa.
Nice.
Yes.
You have Green Bay.
Give me, I'm not going to hesitate on this. This is a perfect spot for him. Yeah, give me Xavier Worthy, wide receiver.
Out of Texas, great pick.
Out of Texas, that speed element. You got Christian Watson. You have Romeo Dobbs, who's just, he's just a guy. Dontavian Wicks, the rookie this year from Virginia, has been actually showing up pretty well, but neither of them have that 4.2 blow by you kind of speed that Xavier Worthy has.
Game breaking speed is what Xavier brings.
Absolutely. So
I'm on the board with the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm very upset because I was going to take Xavier Worthy to the Indianapolis Colts, but I don't think it's a consolation prize. I'm going to take Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington.
Yeah.
I think Pittman's been playing excellent this year. Downs in the slot has been really, really good, and I think that if you can put Jalen Polk on the opposite side, Alec Pierce just hasn't lived up to, you know, the billing of what I think everyone kind of thought or believed Alec Pierce might be. And you know what? Maybe in a reduced role, he can play a little bit better as a fourth wide receiver. And let's just bring in some competition in Jalen Polk. And you're back on the clock with the Minnesota Vikings.
And we took Michael Penix to start.
Yep.
Gosh. They need a lot. There's a ton of different ways you can go for this team, right? Edge rusher makes sense. It's probably time that a linebacker comes off the board here too. That could make sense. Defensive back. Can you pop up the cornerback room there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's some good guys, but no one that I think the value is probably still going to be on the offensive side of the board. So I'm going to take a pick that might be a little bit outside of the norm. Yeah, but I'm going to go ahead. Listen, I haven't liked at all what I've seen in the backfield, so I'm going to go ahead and pluck the first running back off the board, and I'm going to take Trey Benson. The do-it-all running back from Florida State, can affect the game both with his speed and strength and contact balance, in the run and as well in the pass. What they're getting in the backfield right now just isn't working. You might as well offer a good running back up. This is the time where running backs come off the board, so offer a good running back up there to help your rookie quarterback and the receivers that you have there already. Let's just make this full go on the offense and see what happens.
Yeah. Makes sense. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we took a safety in the first round in Cam Kinchins, and I like that pick. And I know that this doesn't necessarily shout out as like a super big need for them, but I think the biggest area of success that you find, like, I believe in making a strength into a superpower, and I think that their strength right now is their defensive line. And I think the interior of the defensive line needs some help, needs some reinforcements. And I think Tavondre Sweat is the perfect type of player to come in and play his nose tackle. You have TJ Watt on one side and Highsmith on the other side. And
you got Keanu Benton there, man. They drafted Keanu Benton.
Yeah, but Hayward's getting old.
True. Yeah.
That's the point. It's not that they need one necessarily like desperately, but it's that Hayward's not getting any younger, and he's starting to hit that phase of he's going to start missing a ton of time. He's missed time this year, and Ogunjobi's not all that great, and Benton hasn't been playing a ton of snaps and hasn't been all that great. I like the idea of just beefing up the interior there. I still don't love any of the linebackers right now at this point, personally. And I know that's where they need help. And really, the easy pick is I was going to take Jackson Powers Johnson here, but you took him already. So I couldn't do that. That was my plan. I wasn't even looking at the Steelers because I was like, that's so easy. That's what I'm going to do. And it just didn't work out. Gotcha. And then you have the Browns. Browns are interesting. First pick that we're making for the Browns. Obviously, we know that they traded for Elijah Moore, and he's been okay. And I still love the potential of Elijah Moore. I'm not the biggest fan of Amari Cooper. I think he's a garbage time yards wide receiver, personally. Like, I don't think he steps up in a big way in the big moment. And I really like some of these wide receivers. And you know what? I'm gonna do it. I love me some Malachi Corley. I love me some Malachi Corley. I'm gonna take Malachi Corley here to the Cleveland Browns. I think with Watson coming back, you really have a good wide receiver room there. Hopefully Elijah Moore can step up and play in the role that we all think that he can play. Malachi Corley, Cooper. Now you got some weapons there.
He
And
reminds
now
me
I
of
have,
Anquan Bolden, dude. He reminds me of Anquan Bolden so
yeah.
much. So good. So good. I love the pick.
And so now I got Kansas City. They went Xavier Leggett in the first round. Now you got to start addressing that defense. They desperately need help everywhere on that defense in Kansas City. Like, it's sneakily been one of the better like defenses in the NFL, but it's like a ton of guys on like 1-year contracts. You know, like Jones is on a 1-year contract and all of these things. But do I love anybody here? Do I love someone to be like, oh yeah, they need this guy? I'm gonna get someone to watch over the top. I'm gonna take Kalen Bullock, the safety out of USC. I haven't done a ton of research on the safeties at this point on the class. I know the first 3 or 4 guys, so we're in a little bit of a range here. I think they need some DB help. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna bring in Kalen Bullock because I just don't love the value of any of the defensive linemen right now, specifically the interior defensive linemen.
Kalen Bullock's great, man. He's great. And listen, they've struggled in the kid Brian Cook that they drafted from Cincinnati a couple years ago. He's battled the injury bug this year alone. I don't even think he played today if I'm not mistaken. So listen, teams rotate 3 safeties. You need three viable safeties. Bullock's going to be good too. Bullock's going to be good.
And then the Jags are on the board. I think you got to go and address the defensive line, which hasn't been playing all that well. So I'm just going to take one of the guys that I like, and I can't pronounce his last name. Out of Florida, Princely.
No, don't take him. He went back to college.
Oh, he did?
He just announced, yeah.
Never mind. Now I think I'm going to take Jonah Ellis.
Yeah.
The edge out of Utah. I was going to take Princely, but I did not know he went back. So
he did. He did. He went into the portal. He would have been off the board already. I probably would have taken him way earlier as well. Unamale, I think is how his name's pronounced. But yeah, he's in the portal. He's not going. He's back at school. And honestly, if I'm being honest, I think Jonah Ellis is a really good fit for that Jacksonville scheme because I think he's a little bit smaller. But I think he could get away up on his feet, and God forbid they don't bring back Josh Allen. You're going to need somebody, standing up, rushing the quarterback opposite of Trayvon Walker. So
yeah,
that leaves
and now
me.
You're on the board. Finally, Tigo gets to stop talking, and you are on the board with the Detroit Lions.
And who did I take last time for Detroit? Oh, I took Quinion Mitchell.
Yeah.
Staying on the defensive side. Give me some beef. Give me some interior love. Staying home in Michigan. They do good. Aiden Hutchinson's going to bring back one of his boys, and Chris Jenkins Jr. Big body. Stuff that run. Go get him.
Nice. I love that pick for them. I think that's a really, really good matchup or like pairing there. And there's another, I can't remember his name, but there's another Michigan defensive lineman in Detroit too. Right? It's not just Hutchinson. Didn't they also take the other guy? He got hurt in that draft process. I don't remember. I might be wrong here. You're on the board with Philadelphia.
Are you thinking Ojabo? David Ojabo? He went to Baltimore.
Oh yes, I am thinking Ojabo. He did go to Baltimore.
Yeah. I'm up with Philly, and I took a cornerback. I took an edge. I'm going to go ahead and probably, yeah. I'm going to go ahead. I think this is the area where a guy like this is going to come off the board. He's a little bit of a project because no one really knows much about him, right? Outside of the fact that he's, 6'6", 318 pounds along those lines, been dominating the level of competition where he's playing. But not a lot of people go and watch Yale play football. Give me offensive tackle Kieran I think it's Amajide. Like I said, a little bit of a project, but a perfect opportunity to come in and learn. Can play both left and right tackle. He's long as could be. He's athletic. Again, Let's see what he does against good competition. But this is a perfect opportunity to come in and work with this offensive line coach who just produces and develops players left and right. Kieran Amajide is going to have a chance to learn from the best, right?
Yeah. And you get again, it's just they're taking positions that are a year or two out, and they always have their pipeline. So I love that. I'm back on the clock with Miami, and it's interesting, right? Because like Miami is this almost complete team, and while I would love to take an interior offensive lineman, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, I did legitimately consider Christian Mahogany out of Boston College here. I think it's just a little rich to take Christian at this point. And so I started looking at this team and I go, okay, like if you're addressing need, where do you want to go? Are you addressing value here? Where do you want to go? And I thought, let me just go like value. We know that they need help at the tight end position, and the tight end position in this class is not very good, like at all. At the bottom of the second, I think the value is pretty good in Jatavian Sanders, the tight end out of Texas.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm going to go because they have Smythe and they're not getting a ton of value out of Smythe. And it's not that they're getting not getting a ton of value out of Smythe. It's Smythe's not providing a ton of value. And I think Sanders can come in to an offense that's already high flying and high powered and provide value. So I'm going to go Sanders, the tight end out of Texas to Miami. You're on the clock with San Francisco.
I love that pick, by the way. I think that's a phenomenal pick. I'm on the board with San Francisco. I forgot who I took for San Francisco last time. Can you refresh my memory?
Give me 2 seconds. They took Jordan Morgan.
Oh, they did take their offensive tackle. Okay, so I'm not sure. Well, you took Jatavian Sanders. I actually really like Jatavian Sanders to the San Francisco 49ers. That's my like secret, like little stash pick. Kittle's getting up there in age. I don't know what his contract looks like. At some point, San Francisco is going to have to start paying the piper and cut some of these big contracts. They've been signing guys big money, big names for their run now, but at some point you're going to have to kick that can. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another weapon for them on offense, right? Something that they really don't have. They utilize a bunch of different guys all over the place on the offense. Obviously, we know that. We know what Brandon Ayuk is. I'm going to assume he's coming back. We know what Deebo Samuels is, right? We know what George Kittle is. But the one thing that they don't have is that outside of Christian McCaffrey, is that super shifty guy that can find the holes in the zone underneath from the slot, do all that stuff. Tell me Lad McConkey doesn't smell like a San Francisco 49er to you.
Wow.
Right?
That's another, what's going to end up happening with this pick is that it's going to be another second round wide receiver that's going to go to San Francisco and show up and show out. Because that's a great pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Wow.
I do say so myself. I agree.
That's a great pick. I love this pick. Okay. I'm picking with the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens, as far as I'm concerned, are a team that's ready to win. I took a wide receiver in A.D. Mitchell in the first round with them, for them. And I don't love edge value right here because I would love to help them bring in an edge. Like Van Noy's not getting any younger. Clowney, I'm pretty sure, is on a 1-year deal. And with Princely not being available because he's going back to school, I'm not a big fan of taking one of the other guys specifically at this point. Now, they just paid a ton of money, and I mean a ton of money, to Roquan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Queen is going to be going on to the last year of his deal. Am I crazy for thinking Barrett Carter to the Baltimore Ravens? They don't
Um,
really have a ton of
no,
needs.
no, you are crazy because Barrett Carter also just declared that he's going back to
Is
Clemson
he
for his
going
senior
back?
year.
Is his teammate going back? And
Jeremiah Trotter, no, he declared for the draft.
then I'm going with his teammate and Jeremiah Trotter. They're my 1-2 in the linebackers right now. Anyway,
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
take
that's fine. Like I said, I think linebacker does make sense for them. Um, Trotter's an interesting one. I thought last year he was he was going to break the mold and be, coming into the draft this year, going to be the guy that's, a top 15 off ball linebacker again, but he didn't play up to the level he played last year. I think this is probably around where you're going to go see him. Um, and so it makes sense. I understand the rationale on develop, putting in a pipeline player to, possibly take over for Queen. So yeah, I don't know if it's listen, I don't know if he's my favorite in the class, but
no.
I get the spot, and I'm up for Dallas.
Last pick of our
I
2-round mock draft. Make it a good
I
one.
I am going to take who's my favorite linebacker in this class. A true Mike, 6'3", 240 pounds. Just man the center of that defense, stiff against the run, really good. Michigan linebacker Junior Colson comes off the board for Dallas.
Cool. So there it is, guys. Our full 2-round mock draft. You'll love to see it. All of that stuff. Here are the full results. I'm going to zoom in and scroll while we close out here. Dom, how did you think we did?
Not too bad, my friend. Not too bad. Listen, I know I threw a little bit of a curveball how we started, but I thought it was important that we kind of throw some different scenarios out there, right? Everyone's mocking a quarterback to Chicago, but what happens if they really somehow whoever takes over as a coach, or if Eberflus stays and they really believe um in the kid they have? What would the draft look like if Caleb Williams or Drake May didn't go number one? That's why I did what I did. But yeah, listen, there's definitely some more, a lot more studying that needs to happen. It's our first exercise and really going past 32 picks, so there's some names and stuff like that you don't expect to, be on the board, or you expected, and the positions that you can tell just dry up real quick. Edge being one of them,
Yeah.
right? Cornerbacks, there's plenty of cornerbacks. I mean, we know that there's 6 quarterbacks that are going to hear their names, in the first 2 rounds at some point. After that, who knows what happens there, right?
Yeah.
Um,
You can see, and I think you said it perfectly with it, is you see, and this is why I love this exercise, is you see that these positions, they dry up quickly. And there are some positions that there's tons of value. And so, like wide receiver, I think is a great example of that, because we were finding great wide receivers, and in my opinion, in the bottom of the second, where and again, me too. I also thought we were finding some really good tackles in the middle part of the second round. But like, if you need an edge, it dries up quick after these first round edges,
yeah,
and if you need a corner, it dries up quick after these first and second round corners.
yeah.
And so, yeah,
So what's interesting is, I mean, even though I think, and I think I can speak for you as well, is that Cooper DeJean probably transitions into a safety at the next level. Outside of him, there was only 3 true safeties taken, right?
yep,
In Nubin, in Kitchens, and then you took the kid from USC. It's
yep,
only one running back. Only
yeah,
only 2 off-ball linebackers. So the positions that are really undervalued by the NFL, you see kind of stay undervalued, by the draft nicks, you know?
yeah. This running back class is. We'll talk about it when we do. I think it's one of the worst running back classes I've ever seen. Like as like
Yeah.
totalitarian like look at it.
All these
It's
guys just keep going back to school. I mean, Travion Henderson going back to school, I thought was a real dagger in the class.
Yeah.
Cooper getting hurt, Henderson going back to school. There's just not much. There's definitely not much day one buzz going. There'll
There's
be
not
some
even
day
much
two.
day two buzz, in my
Well,
opinion.
Benson and Braylon Allen will get taken. The kid from Notre Dame might hear his name called, and I think he's a real good player. He's going to hear his name called at some point on day two, probably in the latter end of it. So listen, there's just some positions, 2 tight ends,
Yeah.
right? 2 tight ends, 1 running back, and 2 off-ball linebackers. That's it. The rest of it was offensive linemen, wide receivers, and tackles.
Yeah, that's what this class is, though. It's just offensive lineman, wide receiver, and that's it. That's what this class is. Is you need to edge, tackle, wide receiver. This is your class.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's a good exercise. We'll do it a lot more. I know last year that we reeled off a bunch of 2 rounds and even a 3-round mock as we got closer to April, and that's probably when we'll get into that. Once we have. I know once I start rewatching and regrading guys and getting a better understanding or feel on where their value is and where the teams value them. Once the Senior Bowl happens, the stocks rise for some of these guys. So yeah, it's a fun exercise. I'm glad we did it now.
Yeah, we still have a ton of process to go through, and that's the best part. Is it's going to be fun to look back at this and be like, how did we think this guy wasn't going to be taken in the first round? Because you always going to have that guy, it's just like he's going to skyrocket up the board, or guys that are going to plummet off of boards. And so
Yep.
It was super fun. Guys, don't forget to let us know in the comment section below, what is one pick that you would change? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to be notified, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever new Project Prospect content is coming, because we got a lot more things coming your way soon. Dom, do you got anything else to say before we close this out?
This is always a pleasure, my friend. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad to have you along for the ride. And folks, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, again, hate to harp on it, but if you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps us out a bunch. We want to hear from you. We want to hear, what you think we're crazy for doing, what you would do instead. Talk to us about the next positional group. I think we talked about doing the interior offensive line next.
Yep.
For our next breakdown. So we'll get into that, and we got a lot more content coming for you guys.
Absolutely.
So, guys, on behalf of my esteemed co-host Tigo from Talking Jets with Tigo, I am Dom C with Project Prospect. We're here. We'll be here for the next couple months. We're not leaving. We'll see you soon.
Bye.